And this is a look of knowing that you've successfully done what we're going to be talking about today, and that's knowing when to walk away. So I hope that you will stick around, as I would love to share 3 supportive elements that fosters just that. And welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here. And if you're new to the channel, I'm April, and I love to share videos and all things living in the lifestyle of motivation, inspiration, and mentorship. And for today's video, we're going to go into a sector that I find to be most helpful and something that's very commonplace for many of us at some point in our lives, maybe many times in our lives. And that is simply knowing when to walk away. Now, in that, I wanted to share 3 areas that I thought would probably be supportive elements for you to look at when you're examining when that time is right for you in whatever scenario that you are in. Now, of course, there may be more elements you may need to look at too that may be a little bit more delicate depending on the particular situation. But I do think that this is a nice overall checklist, if you will, that quickly gets you to summarize when it's best to go ahead and start making those steps to moving forward to the next chapter of your life, even if it means just the next page. But either way, you're moving forward. First step, choosing yourself. And what does that mean exactly? Well, that means taking the time to know that you have to be a priority as well. You know, so many of us have experienced very often in lives when we're doing many things for many other people, doing many other things that are directed by other individuals, and do many other things that kind of support other individuals, but not always taking the time to decide what things may be best for us. Sometimes that can be pretty difficult to know, right? Sometimes you may struggle with really what makes you happy, because if you are put in a mindset where you're continually just kind of powering through life, you don't maybe always take the time to stop and think and kind of redress whatever is going on at that current time and place. So it's very helpful to put yourself first. Now, does this mean you're putting yourself first at all times, every time? Well, not necessarily, because, you know, one of the wonderful elements and attributes of an individual is being a giver, right? Doing things that actually are helpful for others and help bring other people up. The one thing I think a lot of things that happen that come amiss is forgetting that we need to do the same for ourselves, right? Because if we're not uplifted, and the time isn't taken for us to find out what it is that makes us happy, it can be sometimes hard to exude that in other areas and provide that for other people. So remembering to look at what is important for you, where you would like to see yourself, is what you're doing happiness, or is it just something that's just mundane and at some point you need to start tweaking and making some changes. So one of the areas that I think that are very helpful in deciding when it is a time to really take that step back and really looking and choosing yourself is know what your core values are. Now, core values you often hear in more professional type of settings. But did you know that core values also really can pertain to yourself? That's right. I'm one that's very interested in affirmations, as you already know if you've been watching some of my prior videos. And that is taking that time for that positive speak and that positive dialogue. And it's just important that we fill ourselves up with that, because that's what helps us hold our head up and walk straight, right? It's what helps us feel like we can tackle anything that is in front of us, or at least at the very least be able to figure out how we can go about that and get the resources that we need to when it comes to that time. So, as we know, no path is perfect path. So, you know, just remembering that it's okay to make adjustments in that. But when you're looking at core values, you're looking at what makes you happy, what satisfies you, what things are important to you, and how does that relate to what is going to make you a better person and makes you show up better in the world for others as well as for yourself. So I think that when you're establishing your core values and what it is that really makes a difference to you, that can be very helpful in knowing when it's time to walk away. One of the attributes also of establishing core values for yourself is being able to take those core values and lining them up in a very nice way that starts to look a whole lot like goals. And we always know that if you have goals set for yourself and you write them down, say them to yourself, whatever that you do to make them a tangible element, It is something that you can look at, something that you can reflect on, and therefore it becomes something that you work towards. So it's really important to establish those core values when it is the time for you to assess what is really important to you. I often think about times in the professional aspect when we look at the concept of job satisfaction. But I think sometimes individuals will look more at job satisfaction being only linear to how individuals who are receiving your services feel about what is going on and their happiness. But you know, job satisfaction has to include you as well. And it's great to ensure that you are doing the very best at whatever it is that you do. But it's also important to make sure that it is fueling you as well. Because when you are the best for yourself, then you can be the best for whatever it is that you do. Second supportive element, that would be realizing that you're not giving up. You may just be pivoting. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, sometimes we find that when we put ourselves in a situation where we've worked so hard for a particular thing, that we get kind of locked into the way that we are doing that particular action. And we can sometimes feel a little overwhelmed when it comes time to have to make an adjustment, because you know that there is one that needs to happen in order to move to whatever the next step is for you. So sometimes scrapping the entire situation is what is warranted, right? Sometimes you just have to clean the slate and make sure you move forward in that endeavor, meaning that you're just taking a full-on right turn or left turn, whatever you prefer, but in a positioning that you know that it's time to just move forward, and whatever is going on right now is just not working at all. But there are times when maybe you don't have to scrap the whole entire thing, right? Maybe you can look at different ways of accomplishing whatever that goal is for yourself, or that you can look at different ways of how you see yourself in whatever it is that you're interested in doing. Because it's one of those things that if you see it, you can believe it, because you know, it's right there in front of you, at least proverbially. So it's important to understand that when we are making a pivot, it's always for the better good. And it's not something that you should feel concerned with in a sense that as if you are just giving up, because you simply are not doing that. You know, sometimes when you make pivots in necessary areas, it will actually prevent you in the long run from giving up on whatever it is that you're trying to do. Now, don't get me wrong. There's many situations where people are probably very happy and content in where you are. So if that is the place that you want to be, which is where you currently are, then that's wonderful. But if you're in a situation where you really don't feel innately that this is really what you want to be doing, then you really want to start looking at those different aspects. And sometimes when you are kind of looking at everything as a whole, it can become very overwhelming, right? So, you know, it's okay if you need to take baby steps, which I would call that pivoting. And just make sure that you keep in mind what your end goal is and just start making those tangible steps to getting to that spot. And thirdly, and probably one of my most favorites, is learning not to overstay your welcome. You know, that is something that I have coined for myself in the professional setting, in which I have made the determination that if I feel that it's time for a growth spurt to occur, then it's time to make those steps to move forward in order to obtain that growth spurt. Because you don't really want to stay in a place that you really have elevated from. And I think that's extremely important in making sure that you are aiding in your best interest so that you don't feel or become stuck in what you were doing and then feel overwhelmed to make the next step and then feel that maybe you're just not meant to do anything else. And that's just such a travesty, because I think a dream unfulfilled is really a hard pill to take. So, you know, feeling your gut instinct as to when it's time to start making some forward steps is always really important. Now, when I coined that phrase for myself some time ago, I looked at it from the perspective, and for one aspect is if I worked in a particular area for so long where, I don't know, there'd be like this crazy scenario of a situation, and then I would turn around and come up with an answer that actually worked, and it was completely complex of a situation, didn't have any real rhyme or reason as to get to that step, and I did that often, then I kind of felt, maybe it's time to kind of step it up and do something a little bit different, start stretching my brain in a different direction into doing something else, because I think now I've kind of outgrown this particular area. And, if you are one of those individuals who love to be in that kind of situation and maintain in that situation, that is wonderful and great, and more power to you, because there is something to be said for feeling exactly fulfilled in knowing that you can be that expert. But there are times when you may feel like, you know what, okay, I've done this, I've mastered this, now it's time to go ahead and learn and master something else. So understanding when it's time for you to not overstay your welcome, I think, is really prevalent in making the decision of knowing when to walk away. I think one of the negative things that can occur when you don't really assess and know when that time comes for you is that you become less engaged in what it is that you're doing, and therefore can become less effective. And usually that doesn't work out well for you, more so you than anybody else. And how disheartening is it to work so hard to get to a certain degree and a certain point in your career or in your life, working on towards something, for it to kind of just poof, be gone in a way that really was because you didn't know when it was time to kind of take that leap of faith and move forward to the next element of learning, because that's what life is all about: learning and exploring new and different things and stretching yourself in ways that you wouldn't just think maybe that's possible, but really honestly can be necessary, and necessary in how you can really have an outlook of happiness through your life. So it is so important to, I feel, know when it's time to fold them and walk away. So I really enjoy talking about that, because I remember saying it so often when it came time to, that means that's my cue, it's time to go. So just make sure that you are understanding when your internal element or essence says to you, that I think I've outgrown this area and I think it's time to make a move. Well, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I really do hope that you found today's video helpful. It's not always easy knowing when to take those necessary steps to walk into a direction of the unknown, or maybe the known, but know that it's better for you. But it is imperative, and it is one that will help you to become a better you, and a stronger you, and a more efficient, effective you, whatever your goal may be, and definitely a more happier you. So I hope, again, that these 3 elements, which I like to call supportive elements, were very helpful to you. And just something easy to kind of think about when it is time to make those important steps, and just getting to that decision point, because that's not always easy to do. But if you have things in place to kind of help you along with that, it does make the path a little bit easier. I'm so glad that you stuck around and spent some time with me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. So please remember to be safe, take care, and until then, bye.